Hello everyone, the game I've got set up here is Conflict of Heroes Price of Honor. The scenario I'm playing is Firefight 3, Armored Train number 53, the Battle of Mokra on September the 1st. And one of the first things I noticed was how much better the scenario depictions have become in the second edition of Storms of Steel. Well, it's actually called the third edition. There is no second edition, but okay. And also the third edition of Awakening the Bear, because then usually the scenario fills the entire picture, and here it certainly doesn't, so it's very difficult to spot where to put everything. And I mean, the hex coordinates are given, but they're also so small on the map that it's very difficult to find. So in the end I managed, because I really wanted to play this one. I don't actually remember playing it before, but I'm certainly going to play it now, and it looks like an interesting scenario with lots of Panzer 1s and Panzer 2s, really the early war stuff. And I don't know why, but I've always liked that. These are the units that are going to come onto the board in rounds 1, 2, and 3. You can see them here. Germans start with 10 caps and 12 caps and 2 cards. The Poles start with 10 caps and 2 cards as well. I couldn't find anything. Usually a scenario starts with one side or the other already being in possession of 1 victory point. I couldn't see it here, so I'm just assuming that you start off at 0 victory points, which makes sense. Another thing I noticed is that apparently there are no Polish, well, there are control markers, but not really victory point markers or cap trackers or what have you, so I just used this one instead, which is normally a victory point tracker, but I'll remember that it's for the Poles. Also, as far as the terrain is concerned, you have some potato fields, and mostly what they do is that wheeled vehicles cannot pass through them, and you have some SDKFZs, some armored cars in this scenario that will be hindered by that. And also, as opposed to Storms of Steel, and if you've been watching some of my earlier videos, you will have seen that I played a couple of scenarios from that expansion before. And since those scenarios were set in July, corn didn't really have much of an effect, but in this case it does, as you can see here. And mostly what it does is that it blocks line of sight for foot units. Now that did trip me up a little bit, because the rules also say that line of sight is always reciprocal, but I suppose that means, I asked the question on Board Game Geek and that actually makes sense, that it's still reciprocal, but foot units can see or be seen if they're in corn, and so vehicles can't see them either, but one vehicle can perfectly shoot at another one while they're in corn. At least that's how I'm going to play it, and it makes sense. So what does the map actually look like? Well, here you can see it. It's 3 maps side by side. Maps 7, 9, and 12, I believe. Here you see the poles set up. As you saw before, most of the forces will be coming onto the board later on, but here you see the poles. This is the village of Mokra, which has to be defended. You have an anti-tank gun. Some of these units are supposed to be set up hidden, but since I'm playing solo, that doesn't really make a lot of sense, so I just put it here. What I could do, perhaps, is what I did with the minefields. I'm just going to roll for them, like so. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and whichever one is rolled, that's where the minefields really are, and I'm going to remove the other 2. I hope that's, some kind of hidden minefields that way. These are hasty defense markers. I couldn't find anything in the rules prohibiting me from putting them onto buildings or onto woods, and I guess it makes sense. It's kind of a fortified building, so that's what I decided to do. You also have gun pits with some field guns in there. Those are actually pretty strong with a very long range, so they might do some damage. Yeah, so that basically, I believe the German score 1 point for each Polish control marker they control at the end of the game. The Poles 2 if they still control them, and the one here in the center actually yields 5 points to whoever controls it. And you can't see it yet, but later on in the scenario there's going to be a Polish armored train, and it can move here on the half track on the half hexes, and they're supposed to contain a railroad. A move costs 4 action points, and so it gets spent on a 5+. No, it doesn't get spent on a 5+. Anything of 4 and below will get it spent. So it's actually pretty easy to get spent. It can fire though at a 2. That is, you pay 2 action points for it. So firing is actually quite okay as far as that's concerned, and it consists of 2 counters, and they can each fire for 1 action. So and the train's pretty strong. I'll show it to you later when the time comes. It's a pretty strong unit, so it can do some damage too, and it actually was pretty decisive in the actual battle. It's just that the Poles lost their flanks and they had to retreat anyway. But this battle was actually won by the Poles. Now, again, if you look at the reinforcements that are still coming, it's a bit difficult to imagine that the Poles are going to win this one, because there are really lots and lots of German units coming onto the board on turns 1 and 2, and the Poles don't enter until turn 3. But we'll see how it goes. As I said, it promises to be a fun scenario with lots of units, lots of early war units, which I believe are usually fun anyway. So let's see how it turns out. I'll come back to you after each round and give you an update on how it's going. So thank you for watching.